Council to join me on the dais. So we have two terrific new hires at our Department of Public Works. I just wanted to bring them up. These are both full-time employees. As you know, our Department of Public Works is busy year-round, particularly in the summer. So I just want to bring up both of them at the same time. Emmett Rumler and Colton. Here in Belmar, the last names may sound familiar. There's one Hines standing taking pictures, and one Rumler sitting down with sunglasses. Two Rumlers, one by choice, which you still got to worry about that. But I'd love to ask our superintendent, Mike Campbell, to come up and say a few things about these two and why they were hired.
Both of these gentlemen were working for us for the last 3 to 4 years. I'd like to talk about Emmett first. Emmett is right now working in our mechanic shop, helping out Billy Musto, our senior mechanic. And what Emmett decided to do, he worked the first year with us just doing basic labor. Then he put himself through college to go through automotive school. He got his degree. He's actually qualified now to get certified in 10 different areas, which is the most you can do in New Jersey. He worked his rear end off. He has become a huge asset to the point where I used to just call Billy and say, now we have a problem with the car, whatever it's going to be. I feel very, very comfortable calling Emmett and having him assist Billy. I think he found a natural niche for him. I think it was a blessing Belmar was able to hire him, and I hope it's good for the Rumler family as well as it is for our family. I'm very proud of him. I'm very happy to have him. I think he's a great fit. As you know, with Colton's been working with us for 4 years. He started actually young on the beach. His father was my partner and assistant superintendent. Everybody knows Franny, obviously, Mr. Belmar. And the same love Franny has for Belmar, Colton has. And that's the best thing I can tell you. When you see Colton working on the street, he runs, he hustles, he wants to do his daily best. He talks to me every single day, and he says, what can I do more of? What can I get involved in? He just wants to work and he wants to serve the community. He wants to be his father, which is a blessing because his family has been so good to him, his mother and father. Whether he ever aspires to that, Franny's one of the hardest workers and nicest men I've ever met. When I grow up, I want to be Franny. Again, I think Colton's in the right direction. I was very pleased to be able to offer him a job through the mayor and council and Colleen Conley. They were gracious enough to give us both of these hires. They made us, I think we were a solid DPW before then, and I think they both made us better. I think they're going to be legacy people, and I think they're going to be great for the town of Belmar. They both love it here.
As you guys may know, we like to put you on the spot, so we'd like you to say a few words.
Well, I'll just start off. This town has given me everything growing up, so I'm happy finally I can give back to it. And that's about all. Thank you.
Well, I just want to do my best every day for you, the town of Belmar, the people who live in it. And I'm proud to work here, and I'm proud to be a Hines.
And let's hear a real quick round of applause for our entire Department of Public Works. So next we have a special presentation. But before they do that, I do want to recognize a few folks we have in the audience with us. We have the Sheriff of Monmouth County, Sean Nolan. The Chief of the Avon by the Sea Police Department, and he wasn't behind the sign in Avon if people saw that. So. You know what I'm talking about. And also
Just
Mike
getting
Bascom,
started.
Mike Bascom, the BA and Neptune is here as well. Thanks for being here. So I'd like to bring forward our Monmouth County freeholder, Tom Arnone, who wants to join in our special presentation tonight. And I got to tell you that, Freeholder Arnone and I competed against each other last year. He came out on top. I did not, but that's the way it works. I think we took some fair shots at each other. But at the end of the day, once the campaign's over, once the election's over, you need to work together and put the people you represent first. And I can tell you that Tom Arnone is exactly that guy. So it's great to have him here in Belmar. Thank you.
On behalf of the mayor, and that was very kind words. And right after the election, I was invited here in the same room here to talk about economic development side and some programs there. So thank you for that, and we're going to continue working there. You want to go with me? You're good. Okay. Swap. You can go on.
Okay, so again, whenever we do a special presentation, we like to embarrass the person as much as possible. So I'd like to bring Margaret Moore up here. So Margaret was recently honored on a state level, but what she does day in and day out in Belmar is truly remarkable. And in a lot of ways, she also represents all the amazing people at the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and also at the Selective Seconds. That's in Belmar Plaza. And I can tell you that particularly over the last couple of weeks, we saw what an incredible heart St. Rose Church has when it held 2 events for the families of the 2 children that drowned. And also just the outreach from the St. Vincent de Paul Society in our community and also neighboring communities is really outstanding. So while Margaret is here for herself, I also think that she also represents a much larger group of people as well who really do phenomenal stuff in our community. So thank you all very much. So I'm going to read this resolution honoring Margaret Moore. Whereas Margaret Moore is dedicated to serving her community and focusing on bettering the lives and well-being of Belmar residents and the community at large. And whereas Margaret Moore works passionately to serve her community working with the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And whereas, due to Margaret Moore's leadership in Selective Seconds, over 250 families have received furniture and thousands have received much-needed financial support, making a significant and meaningful impact in our community. And whereas Margaret Moore has dedicated her life to improving the lives of those around her, selflessly giving of her time, energy, and compassion, setting a standard to which we should all aspire. And whereas Margaret Moore's mission and dedication was rightfully and justly recognized by the state of New Jersey with the awarding of the 2017 Jefferson Award for faith-based leadership. Now therefore be resolved that the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar congratulate and honor Margaret Moore on her years of service to our community. Be it further resolved that the Borough of Belmar hereby recognizes Margaret Moore for her exemplary and honorable service to the Borough of Belmar and our residents, for whom she has been a tireless advocate. Belmar is a better town to live in because of her and her service. Let's hear from Margaret.
So, I'll tell you, since we gotta have a little fun here, I've been here now, this is the second recognition that I've been here to, and I might say, they sit here and they make Belmar better. Your public works employees and the Hines family, and now Margaret, but I must say, they live in Neptune City. Don't live in Neptune City. But with that being said, I want to commend you and your town because of the tragedy that you just had there. I attend Mass every Sunday at 7 o'clock in the morning. I see the father sitting there. And I will tell you that when I'm there, you could feel the true love for the town there, and it showed with your tragedy. And I commend each and every one of you behind here and the way the town handles and comes together. That's the difference between small towns and larger towns. They're able to not take nothing away from the larger towns, but when you have those tragedies, they come together like a family, and that was shown there. As far as Margaret, you read most of everything that I have on mine there, but I will say that I don't know where's Margaret, so I'm kind of getting a little confused. I only know where's Toots. And but with that being said, it's a great family. Her husband Chip and Margaret, I'm saying so because we're going to be professional. But I will tell you that her dedication and devotion for the cause and for what she's doing. And on a personal side, you know, I see the effect of it because of what I do in my living with Catholic Charities and St. Paul, and the help that they give to some of our tenants that are in most of our apartments there and around, not only pretty much Monmouth County. We manage about 3,000 apartments, and we reach out big time for assistance. So I want to thank everybody that's involved there, and more importantly, I know your dedication and your commitment. I see it daily. I see the passion. That's what Monmouth County's made of. And Monmouth County, of course here in Belmar, without volunteer-based businesses, we don't survive. And people politicians, elected officials can tell you different. It's a bunch of bull. Without organizations like this and those people working behind the scenes, our county, and I'm sure you attest to towns, they wouldn't survive unless we had great people like you. So, the good part of this, in recognition of this prestigious award that the mayor just spoke about, the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders proclaims this day, July 11, 2017, to be known as Margaret Moore Day.
All right. Sheriff, would you mind coming and joining us in the front? Please. Thank you.
So Margaret's buying?
Margaret doesn't have to buy all night tonight. All night.
I think today with the 7-Eleven,
Margaret?
I think you get free Slurpees at 7-Eleven. It's birthday.
Margaret's going to beat the clock after this. Whatever Steve says he is.
Jen, why don't you put on top side? Yeah, there we go. You stand next to the freeholder. There we go.
When the music stops. I'm standing next to the freeholder. So we go. Sorry, Mark.
I don't look like I have a tan next to you.
I was on the keys with the mayor this weekend.
Where were you last week with?
Mark, you want to say a few words? Margaret's going to say a few words.
A person can have a great idea, but if you don't have the support of, first of all, your husband, Chip, who was unfortunately training police officers down in Virginia today and couldn't be here, although he sent his entourage from all of our friends here. If you don't have that support, you don't move forward. If you don't have the support of the volunteers who answer yes every time you ask them to do something, and each person brings a part to the big project, you don't go anywhere. And I'm blessed to have the volunteers who have become friends of mine now, and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for saying yes for whatever it is that they answered my request for. I'd like to thank also my family who has supported me, besides Chip, my family, with not only giving donations for the cause, but also for signing up for our crowd raising, fundraising that we're trying to get so that we can support Vincent's Legacy with the funding to pay for the rent for the warehouse that we are. So I'd like to thank my family for that. And finally, I would like to thank Joe Williams, who couldn't be here tonight because of a previous engagement. He is the president of the St. Vincent de Paul Diocesan Council. And he's the person who actually took the time and energy to write up the summary of what we do, but in my name, to send to the Governor Jefferson Award Council so that they could consider whether or not it was something that they would like to recognize, and fortunately they did. So I would like, although Joe's not here, I'd like to thank him for taking that time and energy to do that on our behalf. And I would like to thank the mayor and Mr. Arnone and the council for allowing this opportunity to happen for me tonight. I'm truly humbled, and it's the best day of my life besides getting married. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
All right, our next item is going to be public bids for Zoom. Mr. Gannon.
I can explain what it's for. Sure.
Sure.
For the record, this is an auction, public auction, to enter into a lease for Zumba classes on the 2nd Avenue Beach, as noticed in the press. Mr. Canlon will run the auction. Opening bid is $500, and all interested applicants, please come on up.
So the Borough of Belmar will now hold an auction for Zumba classes at 2nd Street Pavilion. Sorry, 2nd Street Beach, pardon me. The opening bid is $500. Seeing bidders have come forward, we'll open the bidding at $500. Does anyone bid $500? Does anyone bid higher than $500? $500 going once, $500 going twice, and the bids are closed. Awarded $500 to our single bidder, whose name is Michelle DiCarlo.
Peter Pyro is going to bid on this one. That looks like you're in.
No, he does Pilates.
I'm sorry.
Pilates.
Peter Pyro's Pilates. next, workshop discussions. I guess I'll let our attorney discuss this a little bit. The draft ordinance for awnings and canopies that was suggested by Councilman Walsifer at our June meeting.
So I've drafted an ordinance in accordance with the discussion we had in the last meeting. Previously, canopies, so there's a difference between awning and canopy. For simplicity's sake, the difference is that a canopy is supported by the ground, and an awning is not supported simply by the structure it's attached to. Which means that you have items touching the ground, potentially in public sidewalks and thoroughfares. So those were accounted for here. Number one, you'll notice that the code sections changed from 3205 to 3105. Very something matter. It's because the UCC has changed in New Jersey. The current version of the UCC, I'm not sure when the ordinance was passed. The awnings and canopies are dealt with in chapter 31. Long story short, this makes canopies legal within the borough, subject to restrictions similar to awnings, and also requiring a permitting process as well. And the permits will be granted based upon location. Councilman McGovern emailed me after I sent this draft to everyone, individually, and expressed a concern as to, because you're going to have support, awning has nothing coming down to the ground. Canopy has legs that support it. And the concern was whether pedestrians or other people using the thoroughfare would be able to see that. And that will have to be, we can certainly add something in that regard. However, the permitting process, I think, deals with location. A permit's not going to be granted if you have 5 poles in the middle of the sidewalk someplace, so that you'll have to be approved for an awning rather than a canopy. As I took it last time, canopies had a lot to do with perhaps people under them dining or otherwise relaxing. So to address Councilman McGovern's concern, you could add a provision in there where you actually broke off that section because you don't want people going in and out past the poles. And depending on the application, so you guys need to leave that to the discretion of the permitting process, or we can kind of address that issue through the ordinance. Obviously, through the permitting process gives you more flexibility in determining the application and where it's at. A canopy is not going to be appropriate where there's currently an awning, clearly. This also deals with your ordinance did not deal with retractable awnings. These aren't retractable awnings on your deck at home or what have you. They're only affected, and our regulation comes in when they're over the public right of way or public thoroughfares. And it deals, I put the, basically made the requirements the same for retractable awnings as regular awnings. There really should be no difference. That's essentially it in terms of what this actually says about it. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one point, I apologize. And clerk brought to my attention that one of the issues is in the wintertime, people remove a lot of their coverings, and certainly remove their coverings due to the weather here and the winds off of the ocean in this particular town. So I drafted 2 forms of the ordinance, with winter removal and without winter removal. So whether you want someone to remove the entire frame canopy so you don't have awning might be significant, or the canopy might be significantly less visible in those frames if the covering is not awning, so whether you want to include that or not, I wrote it both ways, and that's really up to you. You're familiar with the circumstances in which this would be used and what would be appropriate more than I am, so I wrote it both ways for you guys.
Any comments, questions?
Yeah, the only comment, I know I emailed Greg on this, was that I was thinking that we could limit it to like restaurants that are urban restaurants that have the proper bathrooms and everything like that, because the canopies would come into effect only for like if they had dining outside. So I don't know if the rest of the council would like it for everyone, or if we want to limit it to if it's just dining areas for canopy, because I don't know if like clothing stores get more.
Speak up a little.
So.
No, I think it's a good point, and the idea, and I think every canopy we have is related to a restaurant, because the idea is to have outdoor dining. I think if you did it with a retailer, what you may run into is someone putting a canopy out there, and all of a sudden they got racks of clothing on the sidewalk, which is not the intention. So I think that we do limit it to restaurants or someone serving food. You'd have to work up the language on that. The other thing I think, and I don't see these things popping up all over the place because I think they're kind of expensive. And I think that we make sure that it's done right. And that means that the poles, that it's not something you can take down. So, once the poles are put up, if they take the canvas off, and we've seen this before, it's an ugly, ugly skeleton.
Right, that's good in aesthetics as well.
So I would say that we require that it's left up 12 year round. Now, they can do that, however, it gets much more expensive because you need to have much better supports underneath. Now, there are folks that have that already, right? Randall does, Jack's.
Better ACCs.
No, because if you take it down, the poles are still there, because the poles are.
The poles are pretty much, if you want a good construction, they're gonna be permanently installed.
Right, if you could take the poles out,
Then you have
then,
it on.
then you have mine.
Right.
I'm just wondering if they could take the whole thing down in the winter, put it back up in the spring.
I think that's fair, if they could take the whole thing down, but you know, if that involves digging up the
Right,
bricks and
that's
stuff.
a question of how much integrity is there in the
I just
structure.
think logistically, I don't know if you can take the poles down.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
When you also have to remember, there's going to be other areas of regulations. So for example, if you're talking about restaurants, there's, you know, any kind of cooking device or anything like that that's under the canopy invokes the fire marshal's jurisdiction. Tents and canopies are also governed by the fire code. So anytime you have someone in there, there's triggers under the fire code. For example, if you're having an exhibition and there's bleachers under the canopy, fire marshal has to okay that for obvious reasons. So some of this that we're talking about is also going to fall under fire regulation. How many people can be under it? When it gets a certain size, the fire marshal is also going to have to be approving it as well.
Space
Don't
heaters
quote me
are
on this,
also
I
an
believe
issue
it's,
under the.
yeah, I believe it's 900 square feet under the fire code, 30, bigger than 30 by 30, invokes his jurisdiction. And again, if you're going to, if it's electrified, if there's any piping or any sort of mechanicals in the top of the canopy, then it's, you know, it needs to go to construction office.
And I also think that we need to, not, you know, our sideways are wide, but then all of a sudden there's pots with plants in them, there's telephone poles, so there are parts where it gets narrow.
Right.
So I think if you're gonna have a canopy, there still has to be enough width between anything that's obstructing someone, which again, it may not be their fault, they just have a place that's got a telephone pole in front of it, but that's gonna limit how big their canopy can be.
Right.
So that,
Just like
you know,
there.
we're still ADA compliant with our sidewalks, with people walking by and not having to go under the canopy, even in the months when it's not being used.
Correct.
So,
I wouldn't say also that this enables people to just put up a canopy, no matter what, any of this stuff has to be permitted. So this only entitles people to now come for permits for canopies, just like canopies for awning. Canopies prior to were prohibited entirely.
I like the, you know, I like the idea of Councilman Wilsford's ordinance that just makes it simpler and easier for small businesses to operate in Belmar. And I think we can accomplish that, but I think we just have to do it in a way that doesn't exacerbate, you know, people walking up and down the sidewalk. And also, you know, is aesthetically, it fits in aesthetically with the rest of Main Street. But I think it's definitely doable. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, most of them that we have, stay up all long. I haven't seen anybody take them down during the winter time, so.
No, not the ones I can think
that
of,
are
they're up all year.
And the planning board has allowed a lot of them, so we have some kind of structure for them, because it's not just like we're creating this brand new.
Also, could you give me an example so that I can provide, so it always helps if I can see what I'm writing or trying to.
Well, there's Brandel Restaurant, Jack's Tavern, Federici's.
Federici's right next to Jack's.
Federico's.
Yeah, they have some, there's a, yeah.
Great.
Anyone I'm missing?
I think George's Restaurant, when it was open, had it.
I think fortunately
They have it, they still have it out there.
Yeah, you're right, but George's Restaurant, where's George?
What's it, Limbo
He left.
2 Main Street? They still have one out.
Next to Waves.
How about calling Franny Hines Mr. Belmar? Really, Mayor of George Comatas. I don't know, character.
But I mean, the idea of it, they still have to go through all
Yeah,
the
they would still have to go
codes,
through
the electrical codes. It doesn't circumvent anybody from doing that, but what it does is it helps them, whoever wants to apply for the canopy, to save them from going to the planning board and spending all the money with attorneys and coming up with all the requirements.
Right, anyone now wants a canopy where it has to go get married.
But I think that it should probably limit it to just restaurants and outdoor dining.
Is there consensus on that? That was going to be my question. Does everyone feel like it should be
Can't think of any other
Restaurant
business that would.
We have a.
No, but I'm saying, that's what, if you had someone selling clothing, all of a sudden you're gonna have racks of clothing under this canopy, and I don't think that's the intention.
No.
I think it's, for people to sit at tables and eat. So-
Right, we have like a couple of times a year, they do want to have them do sidewalk sales, like BDP organizes some things.
Right.
But we don't want that to be like, right, we can't, no, yeah.
What about the, like this cupcake place, the sweet, is that considered a outdoor dining? And they don't have a canopy up there now.
No.
Because they do
I
all
don't
the
think-
tables.
It's a break.
Well, they don't have to
No,
be.
because they don't have indoor eating. I mean, they don't have indoor facilities to sit there and eat.
And maybe on that, we just-
Restaurants or someplace where people want to eat shades in essence.
I think maybe what you can do is they have to have a certain minimum size kitchen.
Would it make sense to tie into the outdoor dining application?
Well, the outdoor diners may not want, oh yeah, I guess why not, right? Just tie it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that instead of changing this completely to addressing here, you could put canopies are here prohibited except as provided in the outdoor dining section, and then we can modify that ordinance so that it's only clearly applicable to the outdoor.
Because you're gonna come to the zoning
So we're
officer
gonna modify
anyway for
the
outdoor
ordinance as
dining.
well?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we're talking about, really.
Let's see if Greg and I
Well,
can do it.
this ordinance, the change would be limited to cleaning up the stuff I talked about at the beginning, the chapter numbers and stuff like that. And then instead of saying canopies are hereby prohibited, canopies are hereby prohibited except as provided in the outdoor dining section, and then doing the majority of this requirements, massaging, and gloss in that ordinance. Because then it'll make clear, because if you're coming in here and you're an outdoor dining establishment, you're not going to the buildings and zoning on the canopies ordinance, you're looking at the outdoor dining ordinance.
Yeah, it makes it make it easier for them to find what they're looking
Yeah.
for. Okay.
Greg, do we have a distance that they, the supports have to be from the curb so that, someone else can walk past without having to step into the street?
Yes, I had,
ADA requires a 4-foot pathway,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
they would have to comply with that.
So I
So,
would say even forget, the curb's one thing, but also think about it, there's an electric box, or
Yeah.
there's a
Right.
telephone pole, they gotta comply with that as
Yeah.
well.
It's still
The
got
whole
to
route, they can't have something in the middle,
Right.
you know?
so they can't say the guy down the block has it, why can't I have it? We can just say because your sidewalk's narrower, or you guys.
well, the way I dealt with that, Councilman, no permit shall be issued pursuant to this ordinance for a canopy unless the applicant provides a plan for the location of all frame components touching the ground within a sidewalk or other public thoroughfare, and the code official is satisfied in his or her sole discretion that the frame components will not impede, obstruct, or create any dangerous condition on any sidewalk or other public thoroughfare in the borough.
It's up to his discretion?
There's no
Should we
way to
put
write
up-
this for, there's so many individual circumstances that there's no practical way to write, it has to be this many feet. That's the issue that I ran into with this, and why I asked you for some examples so I can drive by, is that when I was writing this, there's no way to write it for the sidewalk. In some areas in Newtown, it is 4 feet, and in other areas in town, it's, an inch, it's much
It
wider.
has to be a minimum.
So that became the difficulty in writing it, was establishing that clear standard. It was virtually impossible, trying to imagine all the circumstances under which it would occur.
But a pedestrian would always have a minimum amount of space to walk, so they don't have to step into the street due to the.
Yeah, what I envisioned was your code official knows all those ADA clearances and everything else, because that's his job to do all day. So that he would be able to look at a plan and see what the clearances were and things like that. But for me to write an actual number in there was virtually impossible to account for everything that could possibly go wrong.
Yeah, that word discretion, boy, a little troubling.
Well, in his or her sole discretion is written here, but, it's always challenging with the land use board anytime it's, this could be appealable as well, just like anything else under the municipal land use law.
And if I could offer, I think that discretion is in play when he's going out to inspect a potential outdoor dining space anyway. So he's already taking a look at how it relates spatially to telephone poles and things of that nature. So that discretion exists already.
All right.
Well, sounds like we have a little tweaking to do.
Sure, I'll take care of this, I'll clean up
So not on for tonight? Do this
doesn't sound
for-
like this would be,
August?
sounds like we're going to
Right.
take it a little bit of a
I
different
like
direction.
the idea of putting it in, tying it with the application for outdoor dining. That makes a lot of sense. really does. That's what we're, that's what
Okay,
we're
so you do both of them work just at the same time?
You know, I thought a lot about it, but looking at it, it's not really practical other places except for outdoor dining, because you have to stay within the canopy restraints, otherwise people are constantly walking past those poles, which is why it was agreed to begin with.
Right.
So I think that makes the most sense.
Right, and we've
You
already
say
said
I
that
don't
that's
think
really
what
what,
it's about.
well, that's what really what we're thinking about, wanting it to be used for, so we might as well put them together.
Right.
We'll bring it back.
With that?
Thank you.
I have something,
On workshop?
yeah.
Okay, sure, fire away.
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot. In light of recent tragic events, I think it's something we should be looking at about what our options are as far as providing swimming instruction for the children in town. And I'd really like to hear what Councilman McGovern has to say about it. I know he has experience in this area. I think it's something we really need to start looking at.
To give swimming instruction?
Yeah.
Well, it was always the missing piece to the puzzle in the recreation department, that we didn't have a pool. And really, the only place you can really teach someone how to swim is in a pool. But the cost of land in Belmar is so expensive that to dig a hole and fill it with water, it's just not practical. And I thought where we could put it.
Well, I was wondering about L Street Beach.
You know,
the reason I bring it up is
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I grew up in Lincroft, and I remember my mom taking us down to Ideal Beach in Kingsburg, which was a bay beach. It had no surf. I mean, it had a tide. It reminds me a lot of L Street. And L Street reminds me a lot of that. You have to deal with the fact that the tide goes in and out and affects what you can actually do with the kids in the water. But apart from finding a pool, that might be something we could look at and use.
You know, many summers I worked with a lifeguard, Howard Roll, who was famous for giving swimming lessons down at L Street Beach. And to be perfectly honest, it was great that he did this. But I don't think anyone ever actually learned how to swim. And what's deceiving is you're learning how to swim at a day beach. And there are no rip currents. There are nothing, no waves. And so someone goes there, let's say for 2 or 3 weeks, I know how to swim, they go down to 16th Avenue Beach, they go in the water and they get caught in a rip current. It's a nice gesture, but I don't
Well,
think,
maybe we could just teach them how to float so they can just swim around.
I'll tell you, that's the answer. Teach the kids, if you can float in 5 feet of water, you can float in 5,000 feet of water. You
That's
can
what I-
dump somebody in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and they can float. This idea of telling people to swim horizontal to the shore to get out of a run, that's good for surfers or lifeguards, but if someone's caught in a rip current, float until someone comes out and gets you.
Right. And I think that some of the kids just don't, I don't think
Yep.
they really know how to do that. They know how to play around and surf, but they don't know how to just relax and float in the water so that they can,
Exactly.
not panic. And a lot of it's just don't panic.
And if I could just add, I know that about a week prior to this tragedy, the water rescue had been to
Oh, yeah.
Belmar Elementary and spoke to the children about the dangers of the water and being able to swim and what time to be in the water with the lifeguards there, et cetera. I don't know if they did any handouts. I don't know if maybe twice a year at the schools in town, maybe they could show a video, because kids like visual. Maybe they could show an updated video of how to survive in a tide. Because I think, when someone's talking, especially, a lot of kids think they're not listening. But I think visuals or handouts or, even just kind of role playing, get them all together and pretend one's happening. I don't know. So just a thought.
It's helpful. It's like anything, you tell them in a classroom what to do in the water, what to do in a rip current, but then how they actually act when they are caught in a rip current and the panic sets in, that's the difference. Really the best thing, swim in front of a lifeguard. That's plain and simple. The ocean's not your friend, but it's not your enemy. It treats everybody equally. And if you know how to swim, no problem. I was a lifeguard when I was 25. I go into rough water. If I saw the same water today, there's no way I'm going into that water. You got to know your limitations, and that's difficult for people because non-swimmers will see swimmers out there, they'll see surfers out there, and think the water safe to go in. But it's not.
And I had several parents, they were older parents that were used to when they grew up here, they said that there were the lines of the buoys squared off as, I guess, I don't know if it was for safety, I don't know if it was marking it, I don't know if it was for lifeguards, who was controlling each, what area, but they had asked why we don't have those, and I think they said Point Pleasant had them, but I know I spoke to Mayor Doherty about it, and I know that there's a reason that they were taken down, but.
They created more rescues than anything because people would get knocked down and they got caught on their chin underneath the rope and they couldn't get up and the rope was basically hanging them. Because if you're in the middle of a rope and you're 50 feet from the north rope, and what's the difference of being 50 feet south of that rope? You know, it's actually, I like the way it's set up nowadays. You know, you don't have the ropes as a problem on rough water. I mean, rough water, all of a sudden you're looking down, there's a couple kids hanging by their chin, you know, right at the wash.
Rely on them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one thing I've seen in town, who does a remarkable job with teaching children to swim in the ocean is summertime surf. Because before you can surf, right, all the kids want to go and surf, so they, you know, before they're allowed to surf, before they're taught how to surf, they're taught how to survive, basically. Kind of like Brian's saying, they're taught how to swim in the ocean. And I hate to say it, but if you dangle, you know, a treat like surfing in front of kids, they respond more to the, you know, eating the meal that they have to, which is learning how to swim in the ocean and survive. And he does it really well. And he does it with, I mean, you know, I don't know what, 7-year-olds? He does it with little kids, 6-year-olds. So you know, like Brian said, you know, just don't, you know your own limitations. And if you're not Michael Phelps, you know, don't swim unless there's a lifeguard there. But I do think he's the type of activity or organization we have in town where if people went there, I think you'd be pretty comfortable with your kid being able to handle themselves.
That's okay for babies and babies, but.
We also have the junior lifeguard program that does the same thing.
Right.
When I ran that program, we basically taught the kids how to survive in the water. You know, like we would sometimes put them in a rip current to show them that, you know, there's no such thing as an undertow. Nothing pulls you under the water. It's panicking and losing the oxygen in your lungs that causes you to go down.
Yeah, right.
So if you can stay calm and keep air in your lungs, you're going to be able to float until you get rescued. So our junior lifeguards, that's what we used to try and train them to do, to stay calm and know how to handle it.
And that program is very reasonable, and it's just a tremendous program.
Maybe we could check with some surrounding towns. I know Hampton put in that nice pool over there. Maybe they do some swimming lessons, and we can notify like the school to have, you know, if they want during wintertime to have somebody teach their kids how to swim. I'm not sure if they have the programs over there, but maybe we can check.
Well, there were plans years ago behind the Belmar Elementary where they used to have a baseball field for a pool to go, but that big redevelopment plan fell through. You know, a community pool back at the Belmar Elementary would be ideal. Then you can take the kids and teach them how to swim and or have a place to go off the beach. Look at Colleen's face going, oh, no, don't tell me you want a pool. But, you know, that's already public property, the Board of Education, you know,
That Board of Ed, you know.
that's the only place in town that I know where, you know, I thought you can't put it where the gazebo is because the people that deeded that over to the borough of Belmar put in a clause that it could only be a passive area, so you can't put a pool there.
A lot of people have asked also next to the fishing club on the first and second on the beach. But
That's
can't
not,
be on the beach.
yeah.
One way to allow us to do it with Taylor Pavilion.
Long Range set up a pool where they do, my niece works there, he runs it. They train people to swim for free.
You know, I just feel like we really, as, you know, as a community, I think we have a responsibility to do something about it. We can't just not offer some kind of instruction, particularly to the community that the girls came from, because, You know, we all come from a place where, I mean, I know my parents made sure I knew how to swim. I mean, they took us to places. I remember when my kids were little, we were able to take advantage of the Monmouth County Park System that offered. They were really inexpensive, but you had to drive all the way out to Ten Falls to Dover Park. I mean, they had the pools out there, and a lot of people just can't do that kind of thing. We need to make it available to them where the kids will be able to go by themselves because their parents aren't able to take them. It has to be close enough for them to get there, and it has to be affordable enough for them to feel like they can do it. I don't think there's any question that they would feel the importance of it now, especially considering what's happened. I think we need to think of something that we can do about it. You know, I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. We got to think of something.
Well, maybe that if there is places like Long Branch or Neptune, I don't know if they do it or not, or even Monmouth County Parks, if we can make a list of which ones do it and notify all the parents at the school, maybe some of them feel strong enough to take their kids there, and then have to be like a stopgap
Until we get the
at least get them, you know, some sort of.
All right.
You know, for anybody, teaching them how to swim, and Matt mentioned it, is a difference. So many people can swim in a bathing suit.
Right.
What I used to do with my two daughters is, you know, I had a pool, I'd have them go into the pool in the deep end with their clothes on, shoes on, and have them tread water there. In case they're ever out in a boat, the boat capsized, they fell out, and they don't panic, because it's so much different being in the water with clothes on, shoes on especially, than when you're in a bathing suit. So if you had your own pool or something like that, maybe we can get federal dollars or something like that after. And we could teach kids not just how to swim, but how to survive in the water.
Right. That's,
you know?
That's what I want to do.
During the day or even at night, because a lot of people go out in the boat at night, they, you know, they go into the water in the dark, you know, and then all of a sudden the panic sets in. Again, you stay calm, you can float.
So if I could offer, it sounds, what I'm hearing is more of a focus on, other than getting a pool, water survival more than more than swimming.
Right.
So what I think I'd like to do is bring in, through our Director of Public Safety, Chief Heisman, bring in lifeguards, bring in water rescue, maybe we can workshop a couple of ideas. Because L Street Beach could work if it's really talking about floating and remaining calm and water survival. So let's play with a couple of ideas, and then I'll come back to you with some suggestions.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Anything else for workshop? No. Any petitions for the mayor and council? Anyone have any petitions about? Petitions? All right. Entertain approval of the minutes.
I'll say it. Oh, this, yes, a little jump in the gun here. Let me start paying attention, okay? I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 7th, 2017 be approved as recorded, and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yeah.
Councilman Nicolay? Mayor Barry?
Yes.
Councilman Wasserman?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
I think so, yes.
Next are reports of council. Council, President McGovern, would you like to start us off on council?
Yes, I would.
Thanks.
First I want to start talking about the Historical Council. Historical Council in Belmar. You know, they have a fundraiser going with the Doughboy. And it looks like the cost for repairing it properly is somewhere between $17,000 and $18,000. So far in the GoFundMe account, it's been raised about $2,500 approximately. The Historical Society is also having a fundraiser at the Shillelagh Club on August 8th. Pat Roddy, who has a band, well-known band, Belmar person, is going to be entertaining that night free of charge to the Historical Society. Tickets are going to be $25, and you can get them at the Belmar Museum at 9th Avenue and E Street, Nostalgic Nonsense on Main Street, or Salon Marcel on 10th Avenue. So that's going to be August 8th, a fundraiser for the Doughboy, and they still have to raise thousands of more dollars. So please, Put it down your refrigerator, save the date, and that should go really well. Again, it's gonna cost them about $17,000, $18,000. I went by the baseball, softball field, and our DPW guys did the work fantastic. I mean, I wish it was that nice when they first opened it, you know. Great job, and whose idea was it to put all that stone behind the backstop?
That was Michael.
I mean,
That was my
Oh, I'm
idea.
sorry, that was Matt's idea?
I told him.
because that was always the problem. You'd be standing in home plate in the puddle, and second base, third base, shortstop, center field was dry, but you couldn't play the game because there was a huge puddle because it was all draining in that direction. Smart move. I like the idea that in our resolution today, we're extending the Piano Plaza outdoor dining area for, Brandles and for Don's. The Friday night concerts was so successful, and those people have been doing it for years, sitting down very nicely, having a little dinner, a glass of wine, a beer, and we've allowed them to extend that. That's a smart move on our part. That's gonna help Don's, it's gonna help Brandel, get through the winter time. So I like that idea a lot. This past weekend, Mark was there, Tom, you were playing, out at the Oak Tree Lodge in Wall Township was the Belmar First Aid celebrating their 90th year as a volunteer first aid squad, which makes them the oldest volunteer first aid squad in the country. And actually, the daughter of one of the founders, Mrs. Quackenbush, she was, I don't know her first name, her maiden name was Mazer. What's that?
Alice.
Alice Mazer was there, so that, it's a nice connection that, 90 years later, we still have a family member of the founding fathers of the first aid celebrating with the rest of the squad members. That was terrific. And I just want to congratulate Pat Provenzano for being mentioned as the Belmar Citizen of the Year 2017. That's my report.
Councilman Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, looking forward to we have a lot on the agenda tonight, so progress.
Progress. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. We're still working on our recyclable bags. We went out to bid, didn't like those bids, so we're on another avenue. Definitely want to get those in as soon as possible. Plantings on the beach. We talked to an advisor, Jason Austin is his name, and he actually is going to get together a proposal for us. He was there taking pictures today. He's going to get back to me with a proposal for a pilot project. We have a window for planting. He actually says October is a great month to do it. So we can put them in October and see how the winter are over and what kind of shape they're in the spring. And we have a really good idea about whether the rest of the project is feasible. We'll to see if it works. And again, I want to thank the Belmar First Aid for inviting us to play. It was really an honor to be there. They are, I love saying this, they are the oldest volunteer first aid company in the country. They're like the original. They're like the Harley Davidson of first aids. They are. It's amazing.
And the best looking.
And totally the best looking, great looking crowd. I just want to let everybody else know about one other thing that's not something I'm doing. I help my wife get ready for this. You haven't seen any publicity about it because the event tonight was not open to the public. But there's a group called Better Angels that my wife has gotten involved in. They're at the Belmar Public Library right now. I want to thank Rosemary Korbalak and the library staff for being so cooperative. Colleen Connolly also helping us get this set up. What this group does is they're on a 6-city tour, and Belmar is one of the 6. They get local people involved who will get together groups of people from both opposite ends of the political spectrum, reds and blues, these guys call them. The point being that one of the problems with political polarization, the kind of thing that we see in our country now, is that people tend to dehumanize or depersonalize the people they disagree with over political issues. They think things like, how can you possibly think that? What's wrong with you? What this group does is get these people in a room And rather than get anybody to try to change anybody else's mind, which is kind of a waste of time most of the time, it's more about understanding how people can have different viewpoints and seeing them as people rather than opposing views. They're making a documentary about it. That's one of the reasons the event was not open to the public and wasn't advertised as such. There'll be press in it in the CoStar this Thursday. But they're over there now. Just to give you an idea about the different kind of, who supports this group, Better Angels has gotten a grant from one of the Koch brother foundations. People I'm sure know they are a conservative political action group, and they also have funding from Warren Buffett and other more liberal funding agencies. I was really proud of my wife for getting involved in this and doing such a great job. One of the things that happened was she ended up with more people than they could use. You can only have 9 people from each group, and you're allowed to invite observers, but the participants, you can only have 9 from each side. And some of the other sites were like, how'd you get so many people? Because she definitely had more than 9. She had people that were on a waiting list. And I think that speaks to the amount of effort she put in and the worthwhile nature of the cause. You can go to www.better-angels.org to get information about the One America Bus Tour, or you can see the One America Bus outside the library tomorrow. They were there dropping them off this afternoon. They'll be there picking them up tomorrow. And tomorrow they're off to Summit. Yesterday they were in Ohio. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nicolay.
And just to add to that, I had seen the video of one of the sessions or meetings, and it was fascinating. I don't know how long it was, but it's worth every minute to watch how, again, 2 kind of opposing parties and groups of people put their minds together and kind of make peace to get good things done. So, thank you, Tom, that's great. Where are my notes? Few things, Belmar Arts right now, July 12th through August 4th is the Bird Art Show. Please stop by and see beautiful works of art. I want to say the playground on 15th Avenue looks absolutely beautiful. My daughter was there today until the rain came down and they ran to Brothers Pizza. But very, very nice. Kudos to Colleen Dillon and Colleen Connolly. The kids camp is just a huge success. They had surf camp the first week, and then this week is sailing camp, and I just hear great things from my son, and he's sometimes hard to please, so thank you. The BVP Cruise Night is July 19th from 6 to 9. Please come out to that, it's always a great time. And if you've gone up and down Main Street, they've got flower pots on the corners, huge flower pots where the flowers are starting to really bloom. Thank you very much to DPW, Mike Campbell, for helping us keep those alive and watered. And let me see, just one thing to mention, be careful about one-way streets. The same exact street I was on this past week, 2 different times, 2 different days, somebody was coming the wrong way, down the one way. I stopped one girl and she rolled down her window and I was asking for...
Excuse me, if you want to have a conversation, you have to go out back.
Sorry.
She had rolled down her window and asked, can I help you? I said, no, you're going the wrong way. And she said, oh my God, I was just following my GPS. So her GPS was saying make a right, so it didn't recognize the one ways. So please be very careful with that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I want to first thank, again, I mentioned St. Rose before, but there's many other folks to thank, including our business administrator, Colleen Connolly, and also our chief of police, Drew Heisman, for everything they did for the families of both Nancy and Emily, for, I had to be almost a 2-week span. So thank you both very much. So the Taylor Pavilion is up and running. We've held several events there, and now there's more scheduled events there. Last night was the John Luckinbill Orchestra. Tonight, on Tuesday nights, there's, what's that? Frank Rumler Band, which is more dancing.
Yeah.
Wednesday night is Circle of Friends.
Thursday night is Brookdale.
And Thursday night is Brookdale Radio. So literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the Taylor Pavilion is booked up with community events from now through the end of the summer.
Camp all day, music all night.
And that's right, so we also use it for camp during the day. We also held a very successful first annual New Jersey Conference of Mayors Day at the Beach, where we invited mayors from all over the state, including Bergen County, Hudson County, Essex County, Camden County, Cape May County, Ocean, to come. It was our first annual. It went over really well, and it was an opportunity for us to really showcase our town to all these mayors throughout the state. And it was put on by the Conference of Mayors. We were simply the host community for it. But it worked really well, and they want to do it again next year. The Belmar 5 was this past weekend, and I think everyone had an opportunity to enjoy the fireworks as well. So, I just want to recognize the Belmar Fire Department for doing an outstanding job once again. Also, once again, I was the only member of the council to run this hot, disgusting 5-mile race.
Oh darn, I forgot.
And Council President McGovern wasn't even out there with a hose to hose me down, a little help. But also, we are now in the middle, or starting towards the middle of the summer. Between 4th of July and Labor Day is, what feels like a sprint. In actuality, it's a marathon. And our Department of Public Works is doing an outstanding job. These guys get up, they're working before we wake up, and they're working after we go to sleep, because of the volume of people that come to our town. So Mike, please, we recognized it before, but just give our thanks to your employees. And also our police department really is doing a remarkable job. 24/7 they're out there, and they deal with situations that some of us could never even imagine, except for Councilman Walsifer. And please let them know that we think they do an outstanding job as well. And also our beach staff. We have a tremendous beach staff, whether it's the lifeguards, the first aid that are up there, or the beach badge checkers themselves. They put on a great show for the people who come to our beach, both the residents in town and also the visitors as well. I did see that our beach revenues, no one brought this up, as I'm sure Councilman Go, our beach revenues are off versus last year a bit, because we had a pretty soggy Memorial Day weekend. But I'll tell you, the way we've structured things, there's probably more people who come to the Belmar Beach for free that actually pay. If you're 15 and under, you're free. And we're attracting more families now than ever before. If you're a U.S. military veteran, it's free. If you're a first responder, it's free. If you're active military and members of their family, it's free. So, we're off a little bit. I think over during this next period between now and Labor Day, I'm pretty confident we'll make it up, particularly if we have decent weather like today, except for that odd rainstorm. But Colin, please express to the beach staff that's under the direction of Superintendent Campbell that they're doing an outstanding job. So that's all for me. So that concludes our reports. Next is executive session. April, you want to read into the record what's required?
Resolution authorizing executive session, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from the meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas there's adequate notice to the public of this meeting, and whereas the Borough Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council, the Borough of Belmar as follows: the public shall be excluded from discussion and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is pending litigation involving LOCO. Minutes will be kept of the closed session. It is anticipated at this time that the above subject matter will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists, and this resolution shall take effect immediately. So the motion to approve?
I'll offer to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, so folks, we're going to go to executive session for a little while with our attorneys, and we'll be right back. So don't go to RA just yet.